And one of their favorite theories, the Aryan Invasion theory.
The Aryan Invasion theory.
The Aryan Invasion theory.
The Aryan Invasion theory.
This obviously created a political divide between North India and South India. Professor, what are the immediate questions that emerge on the Aryan invasion theory in your mind?
Everything that's associated with Aryans, Aryan migration or Aryan invasion, Aryan conquest is all a conspiracy.
Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Immortal India podcast, where we explore various issues, philosophy, science, but history as well, particularly those parts of history that have been, for whatever reasons, could be political, could be ideological, could be because of a lack of enough factual basis at that point of time, those parts of history that have been ignored or suppressed by the establishment historians, by the Marxist school of history, which has dominated India since independence. Indeed, one could argue the Marxist school of history is a continuation of the colonial school of history. And one of their favorite theories, the colonial school of history, the British colonial school of history, and the Marxist school of history, is the Aryan invasion theory. That there was an indigenous Indus Valley civilization, which was highly advanced, which was destroyed by a horse chariot riding, invading fair-skinned Aryans from Central Asia, and the descendants of the so-called Indus Valley civilization were forced south, and then the Aryans who came formed what is now North India. This obviously created a political divide between North India and South India, but many have claimed that this theory is fictional. It's perhaps the best British fiction since the ethereal plays of William Shakespeare, and new facts and new scientific evidence is blowing serious holes through the so-called Aryan invasion theory, and that the so-called Aryans and the so-called Dravidians were indeed one and the same people. Among the finest scholars who has been challenging the Aryan invasion theory is Professor Lavanya Vemsani. Professor Lavanya, what an honor to have you join the Immortal India podcast. Thank you so much. Before I jump into asking you questions, if I may do the formalities and read your introduction. Professor Lavanya Vemsani is a professor at Shawnee State University in the USA, an honorary visiting professor at the JNU Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Vemsani specializes in Indian history and focuses on decolonizing history. Professor, if I may start with, what are the immediate questions that emerge, on the Aryan invasion theory in your mind, which call it into a serious question?
First of all, namaste. Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure joining you all, Amish, and everyone participating here. Thank you. So, when you think about Aryans, what comes into your mind? The first thing that comes into your mind is appropriation. This theory is so artificial, so concocted. The evidence is, I would say, really thin. And it's linguistic. How can language theory be defining some are created artificial races, some created artificial history, some created artificial history? So everything that's associated with Aryans, Aryan migration or Aryan invasion, Aryan conquest is all a conspiracy created to appropriate ancient history of India. So ancient history of India was appropriated by the colonialists by putting this theory, by inserting this theory into Indian history artificially. It is not an original theory. It is not part of Indian history. There is no race called Aryans. There is no evidence for this. They use the linguistic theory, but there are three evidences that are suppressed to promote this linguistic theory. So the archaeological evidence, genetic evidence, and also skeletal evidence that was found in early prehistoric India. So,
Professor Lavanya, just to simplify it for my viewers, I'll just say linguistic theory means based on language. So the British Raj based their theory of the Aryan invasion based on their interpretation of language, that there were similarities between ancient Sanskrit and some European languages. So it could have only meant that Europeans could have come here, because how could Indians have gone there? They based their theory basis on language, the so-called Aryan invasion theory, and Professor Lavanya is challenging it basis three other groups of evidence. Sorry, Professor Lavanya. If you don't mind, I'll just keep explaining to my viewers. So, yeah.
sure. So the linguistic evidence is artificial to begin with, because the nucleus of the language, the Sanskrit or Proto-Sanskrit, whatever they call it, is in India, Indian subcontinent. And all Indian languages bear similarity to this Sanskrit, the early Sanskrit. So it's 80 to 90% of the Sanskrit is in all Indian languages. European languages, on the other hand, only have 40 to 60% similarity with this. So the corpus, the Sanskrit corpus, has more in common with Indian languages, all Indian languages, even though they are divided into many different groups, two different groups mainly, and more groups later. But how artificial is this? Right? The similarities is not that much. It's more with Indian languages than with European languages. How can it be? How can its nucleus be in Europe? It should be in India, because its origins are in India, its proto language is in India, its current language is in India, and its languages, the current languages of India, also bear similarity to this. So it should have been in India. Its home or its origins cannot be outside. If it is outside, whichever that outside place is, it should bear at least 90% similarity to the existing language of Sanskrit, which is in India, Indian languages, not outside. So it already proves it wrong. So a large conspiracy is hatched to foist this language on India, to make it artificial, to call it proto language, and then to create this theory, all with a conspiracy to appropriate the early history of India, to appropriate the ancient history of India. There is no other reason to claim it. There is no other reason to claim this language as their own. Through claiming the language, they also appropriated the ancient history of India by creating this artificial group of people, non-existent people. Aryans, of course, not there. It's not a race in Vedas. It's not a race mentioned anywhere. The Vedas are the earliest text composed in Sanskrit. It's in Indian subcontinent, Sapta Sindhu region, and they do not claim to be a race. They call Arya, but Arya is not a race, as they explain. So they actually took some artificial evidence and created this artificial race.
Because
So
in the
it worked.
Vedas, Arya refers to a noble person, a person who has good behavior, good achar, good dharma, who behaves according to dharma. That is an Arya. It's not a race. But the Europeans, the British colonialists, and many German, races as well, converted it into a race. Sorry, Professor. Carry on.
Right. It just means honorable, honored, and we have words similar to that in our current usage also. Arya is commonly used to refer to. It's like sir. It's used, and in southern India, Aya is used in the same sense, honored, honorable, noble, in the sense of respecting someone. It's a term for respect, term for honor. It's an honorific. It's like a sir rather than it's a race. So they created this artificial theory. They appropriated ancient history of India. But what do we have now? Of course, language is artificial. We know that. So we have evidence, the real evidence in skeletons as well as in genetics and our continuous history, our symbols, our religion, our continuous cultural practices, they're all there. So the continuity is seen in every aspect of our life. Our genetics. Can I talk about the genetic history and skeletal and cultural history?
Please, you must.
Okay.
You must, yeah.
Okay. The genetic history, the paper I have written is about kind of 15 years ago. It was presented initially, the research results were presented at a number of academic conferences in America, and then it was written down as a paper. So, what the genetic evidence shows is there is a mutation that gave rise to early genetic mutations that happened in India. So first genetics, the most ancient genetic heritage for male, it is the C genetic heritage, and then for female, it is M. So the oldest, and these are dated to 73 to 74,000 years ago. It might have been older. The mutation might have been older in India, but due to the Toba volcanic eruption, there was a destruction, and then there is a recovery during Upper Paleolithic era. So Upper Paleolithic sites in India have also shown this. Upper Paleolithic hand axes were actually recovered from Toba volcanic ash in Bori and in Jwalapuram, in many of the sites, Upper Paleolithic sites that were excavated. And of course, our genetic evidence also coincides with that. Our genetic evidence also begins with that. The female mother M, and then the male C, both of them are dated to that era. And everything, all other genetic lineages that arise from here in India actually derive from there. For the female genetic line, from M, there is L and N and R. And R actually gives rise to more, W and U and all that. And the U is the one that was excavated at Rakhigarhi. U2B2. It has a direct lineage. It
Right.
actually originated in India
Sorry, if I may
several
just
generations
clarify.
later.
For those who don't know, in your history books, you would have read of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Rakhigarhi is right here in India, in Haryana, and it was excavated recently. It's probably on the dried bed where the Saraswati river used to flow. And Professor Lavanya, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rakhigarhi is probably bigger than the Harappa and the Mohenjo-daro sites. It is bigger, right? And this is an Indus Valley civilization site, except it's not on the Indus Valley, it's on the dried Saraswati Valley, right here in Haryana Rajasthan border. Which, again, the very fact that it's on a dried riverbed, a massive city, which Marxist historians told us that river apparently didn't exist, Saraswati, that itself raises serious questions. They wouldn't have built such a massive city right next to a seasonal river. It couldn't be sustained, right? But sorry, carry on. So Rakhigarhi is where this female genetic group was found, was excavated. Sorry, ma'am, carry on.
Right. It's a direct descendant. It's originated in India, direct descendant from this 73,000 years ago M that was found in India. So same with male lineages also. There is a direct continuity. So the genetic heritage that was researched and found through examination of genetic heritage of living Indians, the current Indians of India, shows this. And the same thing is collaborated by Rakhigarhi evidence, archaeological evidence. So from the underground excavations, we have the same genetic history. And from the history of our living heritage in India, we have the same genetic history, which
Now,
shows
these are Indians from across India, not just from South, the modern genetic test. So it's not just South India, it's actually across India.
across India.
Okay.
So the genetic clade is found, U2B2 is found in Rakhigarhi, right? But Rakhigarhi heritage, the U2B2, is found across India. It's found among the tribes, it's found among other social groups, it's found in South, it's found in North, it's in different percentages, but it's found across groups. It's not limited to any one group. Initially, they thought it's tribes and it's this and it's that, but not true. U2B2 is found across many groups. So there is no genetic heritage that marks a race, an invading race, either in male genetic heritage or female genetic heritage. There is no distinction of any genetic mutation or genetic heritage that shows a genetic group, a racial group, or anything like that. This genetic heritage is spread across the groups.
Interesting. Interesting.
And another
Yes, please carry on.
Another interesting theory that comes out of it is this shows 97% of Indians actually derive their genetic heritage from these initial founders, the male genetic heritage M and the female genetic heritage C. People speculated different things, but after Rakhigarhi came out, it became proved that whatever genetic heritage the current Indians have is also held by the people who lived in Rakhigarhi, lived in Indus Valley, which shows that the historical continuity of Indians from Indus Valley to the modern era is established because we already know the continuity and we already know the lineages of these. And because of that, because of the oldest genetic heritage, because of the continuity that's noticed in India, the later genetic traits that spread across non-African world actually derive from this C and M. And that's the reason India is also called the founders zone, because the founders of all non-African heritage are the oldest and found in India.
Okay. Extremely
So
interesting.
it's significant, right? It's not only our continuity, but the continuity for the non-African world.
Does that tie into the there is this theory, this out of India theory? So there is that Aryans quote unquote invaded or migrated into India, because many Marxist historians themselves are now saying they are admitting after 100 years that there is no archaeological evidence of any violence or invasions by the Aryans. So they are claiming it was a migration. So just like how people are migrating into US or Europe today, just people just migrated in, but there was no violence and all happened peacefully. That's what they are claiming now. But your theory seems to suggest maybe it was the reverse that was true, that it wasn't people coming into India, it was Indians moving out of India, what is called the out of India theory. Do you want to speak on that?
That seems more probable because of the lack of evidence for violence and all that. And secondly, even if there is a migration, there should be some genetic variation. So there is no genetic variation that you can find for this early period. So the early era, of course, only shows this continuous evolution. So until 16,000 years ago, there is no evidence. And then 3,000 years ago, Rakhigarhi and all that also shows the same thing. So for early history, you don't have any evidence that shows either invasions or migrations or visitors, tourists. No, no. So maybe first century, first millennium CE, but before that doesn't seem.
So which is 1500, 1600 years ago, yeah.
Yes. But on the contrary, there is evidence. They classified some of the skeletons that are found in Central Asia up to the Arabian Peninsula. They classified them as Induscline. So many skeletons, almost 10 or 12 skeletons from the early period, all the way from Saudi Arabia, Arabian Peninsula, not Saudi Arabia, Arabian Peninsula to Azerbaijan, Turkey. They all show typical Indian characteristics, typical Indian genetics, all these skeletons. So they're classified as Induscline because they're similar to Indus other genetics that are found in India. other skeletons that are found in India. So that's the reason they were waiting for Rakhigarhi to be genetic heritage to come out, because that way they can promote that invasion theory again. There are these 12 Indus clan outside, and then there is this here, but it actually flipped on them. It actually proved in favor of India.
That it's out of India, that they went from India to there, because the older versions are found in India. So that's a genetic evidence, Professor Lavanya. You said there are other theories as well, because yes, as you said, they built Aryan invasion on linguistic theory, on language. You've disproved that, but new genetic evidence disproves their theory of linguistic theory. You said there are other theories as well, archaeological, modern evidence that's coming up.
Right. The archaeological theory. The archaeological theory, of course, we have two, skeletal evidence, and the second one is cultural artifactual data. So the cultural evidence, of course, we know, Paleolithic and all that, they are found everywhere. And religion and all that. We'll speak about the cultural evidence in a little bit. Let's speak about the skeletal evidence. The skeletal evidence uh, is found in India from late Pleistocene, era.
How
So
many years ago?
Pleistocene, I think it goes from it goes all the way to 11,000 years ago, from 10 millennium ago to 11,000 years ago.
Okay.
So all the way to Neolithic.
Correct.
So 5 millennium ago to Neolithic era. So we found evidence from 450 and 5 millennium ago to 11,000 years ago until Neolithic, continuous evidence in genetics, right? Same evidence is also found in skeletal evidence. Late Pleistocene skeletons found in northern Himalayan zone, Shivaliks, as well as southern India, Atirampakam and Hatnora, Narmada Man, and Isampur in Karnataka. So all of them actually show these late Pleistocene habitations of humans in India. So we have the human groups, also two human groups, right? The ancient humans and modern humans. The anatomically modern humans are these upper Paleolithic skeletons that are found in Narmada and Hatnora. And the Shivaliks are considered a little bit older and considered to be ancient humans. So we have evidence of ancient human habitations, the Paleolithic, the lower Paleolithic across India, although the skeletal evidence comes from Shivaliks. So they are called Shivapithecus. And then southern India, we have more evidence which shows anatomically modern humans, which is the genetic heritage that continues among us. So upper Paleolithic, we have the heritage, anatomically modern humans, the Hatnora and Narmada man, showing our heritage, continuous heritage under the ground. And then we have genetic heritage that's continuing among us. And then, of course, the cultural heritage. The cultural heritage also comes from these upper Paleolithic sites, which also continues in Bronze Age and Neolithic sites. So the upper Paleolithic heritage, goddess temple, Bagor 1 and Bagor 2, there was a goddess temple excavated, and other places also have goddess temple excavated in a number of places. So from upper Paleolithic onwards, we have goddess temples, and then similar religious practices and constructing the temples in the center of the village, which still continues in southern India in many places. They have round stone placed in the center of the village and worshipped. When any time a village is founded.
Is there in North India as well, whichever parts of North India did not suffer the invasions. So, in the Indo-Gangetic plains, so it's very severe invasion. So, obviously, but in the mountains and in some of the remote areas of Madhya Pradesh, which did not suffer, the brutal invasions of the last 1,000 years, you find a similar thing.
Right. So that shows the continuity. So we have the skeletons of anatomically modern humans. And we have the genetic heritage that continues from these anatomically modern humans. And we also have the cultural heritage that continues from this Upper Paleolithic period. We have the tools that continue, and we have the worship and goddesses image, the stone that was put on a round platform and worshipped. Very similarly, we still worship in a similar manner. And of course, the images that are done in rock shelters in Bagor, of course, from Upper Paleolithic onwards, but also in many other places, in Betam Cherla and many other cave sites, we have these drawings and early artifactual evidence that shows continuous imagery. So the imagery that you would see in these early Paleolithic drawings are found later on also. The images of lions, images of peacocks, images of fish, these are also found in Bronze Age sites in Harappa images, clay images. You would find the goddesses, and also you would find later on in number of Neolithic sites that are excavated. So same imagery and same goddess structures continue. So that shows same people because of genetic heritage, same people because of cultural heritage. If there is a invasion or occupation or change, it should show in the cultural change. There should be an additional goddess, there should be an additional tool, there should be an additional pottery. So nothing of that sort is found. It's only continuous change. When you are
Like in places, yeah, which have suffered invasions and changed completely, uh, like Iran, where ancient, like in Iran, the ancient Persian heritage, the Zoroastrian Avastan is very difficult to find. Most of the ancient temples have been destroyed, and that you can clearly see the evidence of an invasion. Um, Professor, have you studied the paper, The New Theory of the Decipherment of the Indus Valley script, which Mr. Rao has put up, which, and obviously he didn't find the equivalent of a Rosetta Stone. He's used, traditional code breaking techniques with the help of computers, and the most likely candidate to fit the script, as a language is Sanskrit, and he has translated some 3,700, 100% of them. Seals, bangles. That's a very large number. I mean, as ancient, samples of scripts go, and apparently the logic for Sanskrit seems to be working in that. Have you studied it, and what do you think of that theory?
I'm seeing it for quite some time to read Sanskrit verses and Sanskrit words. Someone has also read a Sanskrit verse on one of these. Actually, Atharvan verse, I think. Yeah. So this is happening, and in this AI era, they cannot really keep a civilization, a script silent for long. This will this will come out, and most probably this seems probable. We need more work and more sophistication into the theory. But as far as I have seen, it seems to work because it dispels many of the misunderstandings. It also examines the words and terms and then the verse, which is suitable in context. So if you're creating a language, if you're trying to understand a language, the words are important, the grammar is important, and also when you read the terms, the cultural context is also important. And the cultural context is also working here. So the previous theories are disproved. There is no original home of Sanskrit anywhere else. Its nucleus is in India. So its origin should also be in India. And if the homeland of Vedas are in Indus, in Sindhu Saraswati, its origin should also be in Sindhu Saraswati. There is no evidence that it came from somewhere else because there is no evidence of any language or any larger culture anywhere else for that time period. So for a culture to emerge as strong and powerful by 3000 or 4000 BCE, it should exist from 10,000 BCE.
Yeah.
So the culture that existed from 10,000 BCE onwards as a stronger culture is only in Sindhu Saraswati. So the Birana, the Mehergar, all these early sites actually are 12,000 years old. So they existed and they evolved into this powerful, larger civilization by 4000 BCE to be able to create such powerful language, such powerful texts, such powerful verses and culture, larger cities.
Cities and yeah.
Yes,
Trade,
by
everything.
4000 BC.
Yeah.
It cannot happen in
Doesn't
100
happen
years,
by itself.
200 years.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, it should be there. People should be living there, should be enjoying the region, should be familiar with the region to build all these things, build the farms, build the cities, they should know the mosaic of the land. They cannot do it by invasion or by occupation. So it grew naturally, it grew gradually, and its language, its culture, its material, its genetic heritage, its humans, its people, its cities, its material, its language, everything developed in the region. It did not come from outside.
Fascinating. Fascinating, Professor Lavanya. I think this has been really enlightening, and I'm sure my viewers will love watching this. If any of them want to get deeper and want to read your papers or books, where can they find them?
I can actually show you my book.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the Reframing India. It shows in reverse because it shows the mirror image,
Huh.
but it's Reframing India. It
In world history.
discusses the inverted. It shows inverted image, but it's Reframing India in world history.
Right.
It shows the misunderstandings about Indian history, the false theories about Indian history, and also it explains our original history, our genetic heritage, our cultural heritage, our prehistoric heritage, and how it was all misconstrued and misconstructed to wield Indian history away from Indians as well as appropriate Indian history for themselves. The outsiders had claimed it for themselves. So that's a false theory. So this actually shows the real theory of Indian development, Indian origin, Indian history, and also shows what cultural shifts are, how cultural shifts actually defined us rather than occupations or invasions.
Very true, Professor Lavanya. Among the things that's most popular in Western universities now is decolonizing history. And this right here is decolonizing history. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe so that you can be notified when the next episode of the Immortal India podcast drops. Do read more on the deep and consistent and scholarly questioning that is happening of the most likely very fictional Aryan invasion or Aryan migration theory. Thank you so much for joining us. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.